Yeah. Um. So anyway, yeah. So the other day, so Zakaria called me and he told me he went out and spent one of the days of Kolomoed. Um, with like Rabbi Matthews, like his descendants, his relatives, and uh, I guess congregation. You know, I guess some people bought some property, and I don't know if it was somewhere in Georgia or North Carolina. I can't figure out, but they bought like 100 and something acres, and all these families moved out there. That was interesting. You know about this type of stuff, like these communities?
Yeah, I've heard of those communities before. I haven't heard of Rabbi Matthews' family, but like doing that. But I've heard
Yeah.
of communities. But I've heard of a community in Georgia actually. So maybe that's what I heard of. I just didn't realize it was
Maybe it was
Rabbi
called.
Matthews.
I think the community's called like Goshen. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, I think I have heard of that before.
Anyways, Zachary went. He met them, and I guess they built at a really good positive build, and he was really affected. So he was just calling me, telling me like like the way their outlook was and different ways they learn and halacha and all that type of stuff. So it was just interesting. I thought it was positive.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I would be, yeah, I would be interested in like hearing just how that progression's been, for all the decades, just where they're holding and how they view things at this point. So yeah, that's pretty interesting.
The thing is, and one of the things I was talking to Zakaria about was just saying like, you know, when you talk about dealing with like displaced communities or you talk about like the African American experience, for example, right? And it's like, there's over 100 years of African Americans, 100 plus, like 150 years of institutions of African Americans claiming to be descendants of Israel, right? African Americans came to the United States in slave ships, right? Where they were subjugated in one generation. I mean, if the kid doesn't know anything, you know what I mean? It's like, and it still was a Masorah. Like, I even remember my grandmother used to say, yeah, we're the children of Israel, this type of stuff. She would just say that, her grandmother told her that. I mean, her mother told her that. You know what I mean? And I mean, that's just the thing. I didn't take it like, I didn't really think anything of it. Like, I was like, all right, yeah, cool, very nice, they were Christian. My grandparents were Christian, and my parents were Muslim. You know what I mean? So like, it didn't really matter to me so much. But and then you have the Igbos, right? Who most of us are connected to in one way or another. You know what I mean? That came through chattel slavery, and then they're claiming to be Jews. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, what do you want me to do? Like, I mean, that's like crazy amount. And then you have rabbis like Rabbi Chaim and other rabbanim who say, yeah, they're Jews. They have a whole Masorah. You got Rabbi Demota going out there tracing, traditions, certain aspects of traditions all the way back to Second Temple period time. So I'm just saying, like, it's a thing, But the reality is like you can make the argument on a concept of Tinok Shanishba, right? Which is like people that like the term comes, it's like a term, it's a term of the Gemara that refers to um like basically it was issue. I don't even know if it's after, like, I mean, I don't know if it's in the Gemara. Like, I mean, I wrote about this. Where's Tinoch Shanishba? Anyways, I'm going to bring that exactly where it's at exactly. But the basis of the idea is that it's a halakhic response to um, kids that are captured, right? Like, say, like, the Jews are attacked by somebody, and a bunch of kids become kidnapped, and they grow up in a different place, and they don't, have really any idea about, who they were before, or very little, whatever. So they don't practice anything, they don't anything. So what's their halakhic status, and how do you deal with those people? And so that's what the concept of Tinuk Shunishbavim basically is. I mean, I'm going to like really brain dead on it right now. I just because I wrote about this. Um, anyways, Bekitzer, the point is just saying I don't think that's the point. You see what I'm saying? Because I think that's where Rabbi Matthews and everyone made their mistake is to say like, okay, yeah, that is the truth. There's a truth. You could say Tinokshirs, but I don't know if they ever used that term or they understood it. I don't know. But at the end of the day, the person has to see themselves at least as a ger. You know what I'm saying? Like a ger is a state of mind. What does it mean, ger? Meaning that stranger, right? In the first stage of becoming one with God or becoming closer with God is to see everything that's around you and see how opposite it is from the Torah, right? Because you didn't I didn't grow up that way. Someone else didn't grow up that way. So they come into it and so they have to have that mindset because a lot of people come in like, oh well, I'm already this and I got a heritage and that. But it's like, bro, you don't know halakha. You didn't ever you have to, do the proper bris milah. It's all good. Okay, I got circumcised too in America. I get it. But I'm just saying the point is saying with kavana, right? And go through that process of transformation because it's not about running to say, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. I mean, people do that, you know what I'm saying? But for me and the people I have seen that are successful in Torah or go the route that you're going, which is spending years of study. And I mean, I was at the Kabbalah Center, what, 2002, 2003? I didn't convert to Judaism until 2013, bro. You know what I'm saying? So it was just saying that, like, so it's just like, you know, it's about being Abraham first, and then evolving to B'nai Israel. You know what I'm saying? Abraham, he was when a guy, came and talked to him. You know what I'm saying? Left book, we're about to read it next week. Let's go, right? And he didn't even figure out till later in age. But once he figured it out, it's over. He changed the whole world. But he went through a process. You know what I'm saying? And so that part is the most important part. All the other, that's what I'm saying. I don't care about the ethnicity stuff. It's nice. It's nice. I mean, it's cool if it gives you koach and that type of thing. I got a soul. My soul needs light. For me, that's the beginning and the end of the conversation. You know what I'm saying? So, like, for me, that's the beginning and the end of the conversation because that's the primordial man. That's Adam Kadmon. That's I made in that image. I'm trying to connect to that energy, that that type of strength, that type of power. You know what I'm saying? I want to connect to that. I don't want a slice of the cake. Yes, I'm Israel. Yes, I'm a Jew. But my connection, my spiritual connection through Avraham Avinu, through Moshe Rabbeinu, through the Avos, through Avraham Avinu, is to get all the way back to Adam Rishon, the man before the Chet. I'm trying to be in that place. And when you go to that place, drinking some soy milk. So when you go in that place, it's over with. You know what I'm saying? Like you obviously you're going to keep the halacha. The halacha is not something you're going to keep. It's who you are. It's your connection. Like it's not like I'm doing this because I'm so dedicated and it's so no. I'm guarding my eyes because I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. It's not that it's not a thing where I don't and I know my natural male impulse is designed to look because that's how I was made. That's how a man finds a wife. But that aspect, I have to protect myself because of the level, the level of sanctity of society today. You know what I mean? So I got to protect myself. But this is the right way. It's not, running to do things. I wasn't a part. I was chilling at the Kabbalah Center. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't keeping Shabbat. I knew what Shabbat was. I was involved. Was Shabbat different for me before I went to the Kabbalah Center versus after? Of course. Every year it got more intense to the point that it was like, okay, it's time to go and do something else. When I say something else, like really, be like the Rav, be like, Rav Bramwine, be like Rav Ashlag, be like the RE, be like, Rabbi Akiva, be like Rabbi Meir, be like, you know, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. You know what I'm saying? Hillel and Shammai. Why not be like them? Why not be like Yosef? You know what I'm saying? Like, why not? Why not be like Mordecai? Why not? So I wanted to get in that game, right? Because that's what I was on. I was like, damn, this is what I'm on. So that was the impetus of me going through like wanting to go conversion and obviously the process circumcision and dealing with all the other BS, you know what I mean? But the point is it took time. And time is where people become great, not when they just run and do things and whatnot. But the point is, with that being said, when we talk about educating, another factor, and I said this to, Zakari yesterday, was like, you know, and I said this to, we talked about this before. I don't see myself as a leader of black people. You know what I mean? Or people identify as black, or people identify as this, or African American. So I see myself as a leader of all people, and I really believe that African American men should really see themselves in that way, because hip hop proves that the narrative of my community, the happiness, the joy, the pain, the sadness, the struggle, hip hop went and related that to most of the world already. People know about my neighborhood. I'm from LA. People know about LA. They know about the struggle, they know about NWA, they know about F the Police. They seen Rodney King, you know what I'm saying? So like people know me. So why would I limit my Torah? They need my Torah too. If they need Tupac, they need Rabbi Mordecai. Come on now. What's the difference? We're from the same. We're from the same. We're from the same thing, the same experience. I'm just talking about Torah. So I'm saying it's not just me. I'm saying anybody who comes from our background has that same impact because of hip hop. Hip hop went around and they educated the world in our narrative, and they bobbing with us and they rocking with us. Right. So my thing is like, well, if they'll listen to Lil Baby and Pac and Biggie and Jay and Ye and Drake, all these different people. So why would I not be reaching them too? No, I'm over here. See, that's what I'm saying. A lot of people try to play my psychology because my ancestry was in a place of survival and struggle, right? And so when you're in a place of survival and struggle, you can't really you don't even know who you are. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't even know who you are because you're just trying to eat. You're trying to survive. You're under a paranoia, bro. They have fools running around white capes, burning crosses. Like we got grandparents that grew up like that. Like that was a thing. Lynchings. Fool, you may just be walking home. So I'm saying it was always been terror. It's always been terrorism, right? In different ways, in psychological terrorism, all types of. Then now you got self-inflicted terrorism. You got gangs. You know what I'm saying? So it's always been terror, right? So when I assess myself as a human being, I've been under so much tyranny, I can't even realize how great I am or how great my history is and how powerful my people are. How like over the last like what 300-400 years, who's been more righteous than us on planet Earth? Tell me, please. Tell me. On planet Earth. Who? What Jewish community? What Muslim community? What Asian community? What Hispanic community? Who's been more righteous than African Americans over the last 400 years on planet Earth? I come from that. I come from that. I'm a byproduct of that. I'm part of um I'm an expression of that. I'm in Israel. I'm learning Torah. We're learning Torah, right? That's an expression. This is the ultimate destination, right? So it's just saying that like it's just important, to just be connected to Adam, that first man, because sometimes if you only look in the frame of Israel, you could get very like insular, and you could be very like, okay, my crew, my tribe, and then it becomes even it's like Shoftim, it gets even smaller, and then people start fighting and these type of things. But if you're connected to Adam and you have a sense of responsibility for humanity through the Torah, through halacha, through mitzvot, then you're connecting to the koach, the power, right? And I'm saying the power of good, right? The power that fuels the world and all the things that you want manifest, all the pleasures you can experience in this world in this lifetime you get. But these things are important, right? Because if not, people they'll play you. They'll make you think that there's some quick fix and just do this, do that. No, take your time. Grow into it naturally. Build, keep learning, keep learning, keep learning. Learn, be so clear that when you are putting on tefillin every day, it's not like these other people putting on tefillin. You know what I'm saying? You're in a different world. You're using it correctly, right? So people learn and study. That's why the Torah is teaching us the story of Adam, teaching us the story of Noah, teaching us the story of Abraham to start the whole sugya. These are men who went on journeys, you know? So it's like that. So yeah, are there connections? 100%. African Americans. There's a lot of people that got connections. A lot of Muslims, in the Middle East, people in Afghanistan, people in Pakistan, different people. Tribes are scattered. People in Asia, India, all these places. Other places in Europe, right? People converted to Christianity. People converted to Islam. A lot of people still know they had Jewish ancestry. There's a lot of people, So it's just to say that that cannot be a marker on a person's spiritual journey. And when I hear about a lot of the I'm not saying Rabbi Matthews because I don't know really what his philosophy was or anything. To be honest with you, I was trying to ask the car like, I mean, does he have any writings like some, I mean, anything, you know what I mean? I mean, lectures, what lectures about what? What is he speaking on? You know what I mean? Can we hear them? Anyways, so yeah, so it's a spiritual transformation. And a spiritual transformation takes a lot of years, you know what I'm saying? If it's healthy, right? Because some people, they get involved Judaism and, they got their outfit on and they say the words everybody wants them to say. And, they're willing to degrade themselves for people's entertainment one way or another. And they have a space and even popularity, right? But did that person actually benefit from the Torah? Did they evolve? Did they connect to their potential, right? Did they find out who they really were? So again, I mean, these are things, you have to, you don't want to fall into that, right? Because you could become 10 times greater than me. You know what I mean? In Torah. Right? Right now I'm teaching you learn this type of thing, but well, 20 years, 30 years, who knows what Madriga you may connect to? I mean, you think Yehuda Berg thought this was going to be me from 2003 when he met me 2025. He thought it was going to be on. You think he thought? No, of course not. Right? Maybe he did. Who knows? Yehuda's a high level guy, but the point is just saying I love him. He's like my big brother. But the point is just saying that you don't know where you're supposed to go. You don't know how high you're supposed to go. You don't know how many people you're supposed to reach. You know how many people who are like, yeah, I never saw myself as a teacher. I got 100,000 students. You know what I'm saying? So you don't know who you're supposed to become, right? And that's the game. That's the game. Is that you're finding out what was Hashem's plan for you. But if you put your ego into it, and not you, but I'm saying someone puts their ego into it and they want to utilize it and manipulate it and use it for this and that's all you're gonna get. You'll get some fame, you could get some popularity, but that's all you're gonna get. But the real acquisition is the Torah, right? Not staying at the same level of learning you were 7 years ago, right? 7 years ago, I know these guys still at the same level, still doing the same thing. Even some of these guys, they're musicians. The music hasn't got better. It's the same songs. Music changes as the artist changes, right? Like he or she evolves, and the art that they created in 2000, 18 is not the same art they're creating in 2025. You know what I'm saying? They're not doing. It's not the same stage performance. It's not the same thing. No, because it's not a routine. It's an expression of life. but that's true art, right? When someone utilizes art for placement, security, even to, support a family, whatever it is, it's not a criticism. It's just saying that's all it is. And because people are Shomer Shabbat and they do Hesed and things, they'll have a certain bracha around it, right? But that's all they're going to get, right? And so my point in conveying is that the ultimate thing is immersing yourself in the Torah and doing it gradually because you're married and you have a wife, and she, as you grow and you go deeper inside, not through like theatrics. People do theatrics, they're shaking their lulav. Well, what does it mean to you though? What does it mean? What does it mean to you, your soul, your heart? Well, I'm putting it close to my chest, and I did the mitzvah. There is a level. I did the mitzvah with kavana. I did the mitzvah of lulav. Okay, I get that. It's very nice. It's very nice. It's very nice. If you're one of those guys, you wouldn't have met me. You would have went to some like local place and went through a conversion and be sitting there, dreaming, man, I wish I knew a guy like Robert Mordecai. But the point is just saying that, so that so that process, you know what I'm saying? And that's the destination that I mean, I'm just doing I'm just showing what I did. You know what I mean? Like I'm not, saying like, oh, I did it this way, but I'm gonna carve out something, that I think is good for you. No, it's like, no, this is the way I did. And I think this is the way the Torah says it. Rabbi Akiva went away. He went away for years and he just studied and he built and he built and he built. He wasn't even with his wife. I mean, that's a separate thing. I mean, we don't hold by such things, right? But it's just saying that this thing is a journey, and it's a discovery. And the Torah gives you a new unfolding of beauty every day. I mean, even though there's challenges and bro, this lady, like I told you, I even tell you about this lady, like I was at this sukkah and I was speaking, and this like old lady, bro, comes up to me and she's like, "Can I talk to you?" And I was like, "Yeah." It's because like kind of like outside. I was like, "Yeah, well, okay." So I know who you are. And I'm like, oh shit, what's going on? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're a Hebrew Israelite. I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, no, I'm not. She's like, you're a Hebrew Israelite, and I know it. You're a replacement theorist, and I don't want you to leave. Bro, this lady's not even involved. I'm with a group of people. And I'm like, oh my God, bro. And I'm like trying to get away from her, bro. She starts jumping in front of me. She was jumping in front of me. And I was like, oh my God, like what's happening right now, bro? Like I'm literally in the middle of speaking. Somebody asked me, I'm thinking this person was trying to ask me a question, and this whole thing, blah, 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 whatever. Anyways, long story short, the guy who was there, whatever, it was rectified, and the lady starts screaming at the guy who was the guy who I was with. I was this guy. Well, it was just a crazy moment. The point is just saying, I'm dealing with stuff like this. This is the type of stuff I'm dealing with, right? So, anyways, the kids are um but whatever, you know what I mean? I'm not like, thinking about it so much. It's not like such a thing by me, but it's just some of the things I'm thinking about. Anyways, all right. So there's learning a little rum call. We got to talk these things out. We got to stay holy. We got to stay pure. We got to stay focused. Eye on the destination. What is the destination? My highest potential. What's the destination for the world? Its highest potential. What's the destination for the marriage? Highest potential, right? And so we have to go liat liat, step by step, not rush things, have a clear understanding. Because this is how the Rav taught me, right? Like they didn't just say, "Oh, go and convert." I mean, Yehuda's the one who told me I should go and do it through the Rav, right? He said, "No, you have to do it. You have to do it. We're going to help you, but you have to do it." I was like, "Oh my God, what's that, bro? This is after 7, 8 years being there. My mom's there, family's there, the whole thing, right?" So, so those years that I spent with the Rav, right? That's what I spent it with when I was at the Kabbalah Center. Rav, Yehuda, the whole thing, Michael, the family, Eitan. You see David Giam, he's like a big famous guy now. Bro, he started when I started. I mean, he's a famous guy. He stayed in the Kabbalah Center. I went out. He stayed in the center. He's a very brilliant teacher and polished, been doing it 20 years probably, right? So he's as polished as you get, and he's still a very young guy and he looks great. So, but the point is, I mean, we started there, but those years were spent learning about how the universe worked in what was good and what was evil, what was negative, what was positive, what was pure, what was impure, the connections, this prayer, all these different things. That's the things I learned about. And then I went and converted. And then when I went and converted, it wasn't like there was a lot of resistance, but it was a lot of haters. But the point is just saying that I didn't waste time. You see what I'm saying? Because it's like it wasn't like, I was like, trying to figure out life, becoming Jewish. Now, I mean, obviously it's a big shift, in consciousness and a lot of things. But the point is just saying that it was like it's just like I already knew, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like I was trying to figure out. Now like I was learning more practical stuff, like through converting to Judaism, like more like practical stuff, like practical halacha, practical, but I was able to connect it to all the things that I already learned. And even when I went to yeshiva, like the rabbis were like, we're so impressed, like how well you could just sit and learn. But see, me, I was already trained that I knew I was receiving light and becoming more powerful every second I was learning. When I say more powerful, I mean like a bigger heart, more compassionate, more connected to the Shekhinah, right? And so for me, it wasn't like a crazy thing, you know. It wasn't a crazy thing like sitting and learning all those years. Other people couldn't do it. Other people that I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was evolving into a new person because I already had a spiritual identity, right? And when you have a spiritual identity, then you're able to apply that to the environment that you're in, right? And you can see why Hashem has put you here and what you're being challenged with and how much it propelled you and these different things. And that's where the success is at. It's having a spiritual identity first, right? Abraham had a spiritual identity first, and then he, went through bris milah and start to live out, his full potential. But he went through a process. Even Moshe Rabbeinu, right? He went through a whole process before, it was time for him to become leader. David Amalek, Shaul, all these people, right? It's a process. And so it's just saying that it's just important to is to have that because at the end of the day, your connection is now. The only thing I would say, like, I really appreciate like Amari wearing black and white and that and teaching Torah, and I think it's important at this stage that he does that. But one of the problems that the presentation of Torah has in our generation is that it makes it seem like you have to look, act, and be a certain way in order to learn the secrets of the universe or to learn what we would call lumdish Torah and these types of things, which I understand because most of it's been institutionalized, right? Because the general population hasn't cared about it so much, right? They really haven't cared about um the Torah and the deeper secrets of reality and these type of things. They don't care. But now, because of AI, because of them losing their jobs, because they have to rethink who they are, because they can't just go and get a new skill set. You know what I mean? They have to really go within and really transform themselves. Now that we're in that, the next 30 years is going to be crazy. You know what I'm saying? And so that's going to be a massive, massive shift. So people are going to have deeper answers. They're going to have to understand reality deeper. What is going on, what's not going on. I thought it was this way, it's not. And it all comes down to the soul and the shama, right? So what's more important, right? To force somebody into like living in a regiment or allowing them to grow spiritually and let that what we would call a regiment be a natural adaptation of expression, right? That's what happened to me. I couldn't go without it. You know what I'm saying? Like even coming to yeshiva, I could have left many of times. I didn't want it. My neshama was getting too much kedusha, and I was like, I'll just figure it out, bro. Like, I mean, imagine running for Congress. You got momentum, this, the whole thing, and then I've done a lot of other things, right? And you just come to Israel, and it's like, well, if you're going to be successful in Torah, you have to sit at least minimum these years, minimum. And that's just to get started. You're like, damn. And all this fine, oh man, crazy. And then you got to figure out how to get married. Also, oh my god. Okay, all right. So either way, just that's the those are those points, and so when we talk about like people who are in the diaspora who feel that, or know that they have a connection to Israel or descendant, or they have exact proof, whatever the situation. And I'm not talking about African men, I'm talking about everybody. Spanish people, these people, all these, whoever it is, don't matter. The number one objective is to be close to God. In order to become close to God, you have to become educated what God is, and you have to slowly allow yourself to mold into God's expectation for you, right? And as a person does that, they put themselves in a position to be very successful in Torah and growth, because it's a natural part. Even Rabbi Pinchas, Chief Rabbi Pinchas, I mean, he was already involved for years. He has his own story, he could tell it, but he was involved because when I met him, I was like, man, this guy converted around the same time as me, and this whole thing. Like, how is he so freaking advanced? You know what I mean? This is when I first met him, like when he was Rabbi Pinchas, before he was Chief Rabbi Pinchas. He has Rosh Hashiva Pinchas, Rabbi Pinchas. When I was there, it was just kind of like, I just didn't understand it. But then when I got to know him, like he had a whole history before that of like learning Hebrew, reading it, being a part of other kind of like Jewish like groups. I don't think they were necessarily Jewish groups, but things that were around halakha and these things. So, and he was a player in it, like I don't know if you say a preacher or what the word is. I don't know how you say it, but it's just saying like he was involved in terms of like an educational component in that world. So he already had a background, right? And so it just kind of like it was an adaptation for him to mature that and to mature that and um to mature that and become, who he became. But it's just saying that those are the guys who really, even Jehoshaphat, he was studying what, 20 something years before, you know what I mean? So the point is just saying we're all on the right track, right? And the point is I'm receiving all the light my vessel could handle right now, anyways, right? So I don't need, like I said, I know a lot of Kabbalistic stuff and this techniques. I'm not trying to do that right now, because it's like you have to grow into that. See, that for me, that's my chance, right? Like you see the Mikubalim, people like Rabbi Chifa and Pinchas, other people, they're doing a lot of stuff that I'm not doing. I mean, I'm doing stuff maybe they're not in certain areas, but the point is just saying I'm not. There's a certain things of waking up at certain times, doing specific things, more all these really they're very intense, high level things. Now I can do it because someone else is doing it, or I could do it because I think it's a level, or I could treat it that wisdom as everything else, that as I am ready to take that on, it will appear. Right. So I'm not running to do things even at this stage in my career. I'm doing what I do and I'm perfecting what I do. Right. The things that I do, I'm doing them the best I can do them. And I work harder and harder and harder to perfect Shabbat, to perfect, Midot, to perfect, teaching, to perfect all these different things. Right. And so so there's things that I don't do. Like I'm not waking up doing Kabbalistic meditations every day. That's intense, right? On a real level, that's intense, right? And if you're not clear in your mind on a certain level, and I'm not saying I'm not clear in my mind, but I'm saying in terms of when you start using divine names and when you start using names and letters and that type of stuff, it's a change in your whole life, because now you have to walk around with that consciousness all day, right? Like you're seeing letters everywhere. You know what I mean? It's a real thing, right? And so, um, yeah. So these are like really serious things. They're not like this. Not It's not a joke. You know what I mean? And it could be dangerous to a person, right? Because once you open certain doors, you can't come out. Like you open that door, you have to stay in there. It's not like you're like, wow, this is really dope in here. Okay, I'm gonna come back later. No, no, you've already opened up your mind. Now it's a whole thing now. And on top of it is energies that are connected to that. And not all of the time, if you don't have the right consciousness at a particular time, it may not be good. You know what I mean? You have to be very, very pure in your total consciousness when you start tapping in. So I'm using that as an example for me, that there's certain things that I'm evolving into. Right? I have time. You know, I've only been a rabbi 4 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a process. You know what I mean? So it's a process, right? And so and I'm still learning, getting better skills. I just did holidays. You know, it's a lot of skills I got to improve on, right? All types of things. So, you know, but it's work, and it's holy work, and I'm happy that this is what my life is at, you know, at this stage. You know, I mean, I want to evolve. I want to, you know, be married and, you know, have children and be a father and have that responsibility and the responsibility of a wife and all these type of things. So, I mean, but other than, you know, I mean, it's a big deal, but I'm very happy. You know, I'm very happy about my life. I mean, the Hashem's brachot and, you know, everything like this. Anyway, sorry. So let's go into it. Hold on one second. It's 3 sections in this part, anyways. So it's 3 sections in this part. Hold on. Okay. So we're only going to do the first section. Okay. You can see I was looking at it earlier. Okay. Bizay הראשונות אני שראש כל מה שעתיד להיות ומשלוש שם. Okay. So kind of like okay. So he says, okay, so let's do a little recap. So basically last chapter we went into this frame of understanding Malchus, right? And like in a way, it's like it's kind of like the idea of like the whole world that we live in, that we're living in, is in the frame of Malchut, right? And so Malchut has, you know, rules, as rules like everything else, like gravity and this, and all these type of things. So in essence, they're using this word residue, right? And they're using this word residue to explain. One second, I'm just gonna go back up. Okay, hold on. 26. Hold on. Yeah, Rishimo, right? Rishimo, right? All right. So anyway, so this is the idea of residue, right? And so like, how do we understand this idea of residue? Basically, he's saying that the manifestation of the lights that were in the Ein Sof, once they came into the Samsung, they became in a limited perspective. And they use the word residue as a mechanism to understand that it's only an outer layer of the totality of that light that we're experiencing in this world. Right. So that's the frame that he's using it from here. Right. And so from there, then he goes into this frame of understanding this relationship. Now that we understand that, you know, the lights in this limited expression, then he goes in this frame of understanding Malchut, right? Because he wants to show us how the light disseminates, right? It has to go from Keter of Keter, all the way to Keter of Malchut, right? So where is this Malchut? I thought it was at the bottom, right? Like, what does it mean it's at the bottom, right? It's like, no, it's not that it's at the bottom. It's at the fact that it's the governing mechanism of how things manifest. There's a total aspect of that, and then there's that within sections, right? So, like, for example, I'm saying a sentence, right? So the sentence is completing a thought, right? There's a keter and there's a malchut, but there's also a paragraph, right? A paragraph is also an expression of malchut, right? And so is a page, right? So is a chapter, you know. So it's like that type of a thing, right? So every level has this aspect of manifestation, and then there is the aspect of full manifestation, which is the accumulation of all the lights, which goes in the frame of Yesod, and then he manifests in Malchut. Now he's saying that light that manifests in Malchut is residue, Misho, right? Is residue, right? Right? And so and so that aspect of residue, right? So what do we so now we understand this idea. And I think Otino, you sent me a voice note and I forgot to respond and tell you like, yeah, what you're saying was really profound because you're just saying that because the Simpson, when the Simpson happened, it's almost like once those lights, in order for those lights to go from unlimited to limited, it the aspect of Malchut had to be inserted, right? And they say a hollow, a void, this type of a thing, a space, but it's not that it's a space as it is a part of the process of manifestation. And so before the light goes into it, it is empty and void, right? Before the light goes into it, it is empty and void, but in itself, it's not empty and void only from the perspective that as it manifests, but in reality, it's connected to all the intricate building blocks. Hopefully that made sense. Okay. All right. So now we're dealing with this frame of how the line governs the residue. So now we're understanding that. Now we understand the residue. We understand how it manifests. Now the Ramchal is going in this frame of the line, right? And we understood the line as a zero, no? So let's see what it says. The cuff. So it says, rooted in the residue was everything that was destined to exist. Okay, it's a big line, right? Rooted in this residue was everything that was destined to exist. So what does that mean? So we know that there was specific lights in the Ein Sof that were supposed to be revealed on a finite level, and other lights were not a part of that revealment. And the lights that were supposed to be revealed went through this process of a Simsun. And the Simsun is what created this constriction on this set of lights. And this constriction on the set of lights manifests as reality. So he's saying that this residue, this manifestation, because the residue is just saying that this is only a limited. Imagine if you just start reading this chapter right now, right? So he just said, okay, so we're clear on that, right? So the residue represents everything that is destined to exist. We know where that idea comes from. He says, and what is not rooted there cannot come into being forward. Even so, all that is rooted there could not have come into being without the limited itself governing it. So he's saying, like, again, if you didn't read the prior chapters, you'd be like, what is he talking about? He's talking about this idea of we don't think of the Simpson as something separate. You know what I mean? It's a greater it's an expression of turning those original lights into physicality, right? Turning those original lights into physicality, and that's the process, right? He says, and so he's reminding us of that. Nevertheless, the limited acts only in accordance with what is rooted in the residue. Okay, so the residue. Okay, so the limited light that came into the Simpson acts only in accordance with what is rooted in the residue. All right, so let's go further. I want to explain that more. This is like the soul, which governs the body solely according to the nature of the body. Ah, the actions of the unlimited, within the residue is called one line from the Ein Sof. Wow. Blessed be he that enters into the hollow cavity, Malchut. So it's crazy. So okay, so he's saying basically like if we want to understand the relationship of the endless lights with the express like the residue. He said you could look at the soul and the body, right? In the same way that the soul, which governs the body according to the nature of the body. So the endless world governs the Simpson, right? According to the rules of the Simpson, right? Obviously, they're different rules. So he's using the same relationship with the soul and the body. They have different rules. One governs, but based off of the limitations and abilities of the body. The actions of the actions of the unlimited within the residue is called one line from the Ein Sof, blessed be He. He enters into a hollow cavity. For what is for what he actually brings about within the residue is in accordance with the nature of the created realms and beings. So again, we have to go back to the lights that are in the endless world that go through this process of the 22 letters. The 22 letters combine after they come through that channel, they combine in different areas and they form divine names, and those divine names are brought into this world as physical things, right? So he says, for what he actually brings within the residue is in accordance with the nature of the created realms and beings. So that was already decided in the heavens, that eights would come and manifest in, or Adam, right? Adam would come and Adam would come in the name of three Hebrew letters, or first letters, and then they would come together as a name, and then they would manifest later. So all the things that manifest are coming through this process, right? Yet he brings it about. He himself acts on his own level of eccentric perfection. As far as created realms and beings are concerned, it is the residue. Ah, so yet in bringing it about, he himself acts on his own level of eccentric perfection. Okay, so Hashem, is making it happen. As far as the created being realms and beings are concerned, it is a residue. But through the line, he acts on a core, he acts on his own eccentric level of perfection. Further, while while what was produced is, as far as the creatures are concerned, the residue, the way in which the Ein Sof operates is through the line which is on the plane of limitlessness, just as he is without limit. You know, you know what comes to mind? A puppet, right? A puppet has a straight line, and a straight line is giving it intelligence, giving it movement, giving it, all these things, right? But that straight line is happening in a place that's beyond the sight of the people watching the puppet. So what I'm saying is that the yeah, man, that was like a battle to get back on here, man. Yeah. All right. So anyways, so we're in a tough reality, right? And we're seeing like this dynamic of the relationship between everything that exists in this world, right? Not just, let's use Pinocchio, or not the best example, but he changed his ways, right? Pinocchio, he did tshuva, right? But the point is just saying that everything that exists in this world is connected to the straight line. Everything that manifests, every ram, he says every ram, every being, everything that exists is connected to this idea of kaf, which is what? A straight line from the Ein Sof, right? In the same way that a body is from the Ein Sof, but comes into a goof that only can manifest in the ram after the Simsun, right? I'll just keep going. Okay. Okay. אחר שנית הפרש or okay, so he says we having explained what the emancipate light is, and now necessarily explain what it produces. Not exactly sure. All right, so Kalaki Amar Hazeh Gimel. Okay, so there's three parts. The first part is rooted in this residue. This explains the distinctive qualities of the residue. Second part is even so, all of they are rooted there. Explains the residue, and this explains that the residue requires the unlimited. And three, nevertheless, unlimited acts only. Uh, okay. Okay. So let's go into this. It says Beze Ham Rishimo the Nasser Kolama She'ati the Lehayot. Okay. So he says he says that rooted in this residue is everything that was destined to exist. He said, this is obvious because, as already been explained, the residue consists of what remains of the primordial light that that the primordial light that departed through the Samsung. For the residue consists of all the for the residue consists of all the what was originally included in the primordial light as rooted in the lower realms and beings, right? Endless world two after the Samsung. This remains in the residue after the departure of all the other powers that were not part of the root of lower realms and beings. This remains in the residue after the departure of all of the other powers that were not part of the root of the lower beings. Now everything that was destined to exist in the lower realms was certainly originally included in the original light. This is the category of the root of the lower realms. If so, the residue is the root of everything destined to exist in the lower realms. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, right? Re'il ze shechol ma she'ati lehiyot haya klul be'ema. So he says it can be clearly proved that everything destined to exist was originally included in the light that departed. For what departed was the Ein Sof, blessed be He. Now the Ein Sof included everything. If so, everything was originally included in what departed. Uma shalom shoresh sham. She said, and what was not rooted there cannot come into being for it. These are another obvious points, but we're going to go into it. It would not be enough for the residue to merely be be the root of general categories found in the lower realms after wait, hold on. It would not be enough for the residue to be merely the root of the general categories found in the lower realms, which afterwards divide into their particular low down below, and all the lower worlds and beings must necessarily be rooted in the residue. Every single detail must be rooted there. So everything you see is residue, and everything in with the residue is controlled by what? The kaf. The proof of this is that there is no detail that is not included in the all powerful could possibly. The proof is that there's no detail. Hold on a second. Yeah. Shalom, shalom. Okay, hold on. Let's get back. Okay. All right. So he's saying here, he's saying it would not have been enough for the residue to merely be to the residue to merely it would not be enough for the residue to be merely the root of the general categories found in the lower realms, after which divided into their own particular parts below. All of the lower worlds and beings must necessarily be rooted in the residue. Rooted. Okay, so again, what are we seeing residue? Because I mean, because sometimes you can hear residue and you start thinking about like goop and stuff like this, right? Like some type of like residue or something. The term residue is only there again, as Ramchal has stated earlier, to remind us. I mean, for us to understand that everything we're looking at is only a fragment of the light that it's rooted in. And now he's explaining to us that every single being, every single created realm has this direct connection to the endless world, and it's called the cuff, straight line, right? And I use the example of like a puppet and a puppeteer, right? Because a puppet has something from a higher realm that has strings attached to it, right? No strings attached, has strings attached to it, right? And fueling the puppet's movement and fueling the personality, right? And so that's the way the Ram College is describing everything that exists in the physical world is everything in the physical world is an expression of that, and it comes to this straight line, right? And so all of creation, everything that you see is a residue of an endless light, of light that we're supposed to manifest after the Tzimtzum. That's what we're looking at, right? So when we're learning the 7 days of creation, right? When we're learning the 7 days of creation, right now, that's what we're looking at. No, like we're looking at we're looking at that dynamic of Bereshit and the residue. And we're seeing how the residue came into existence and the stages of the residue, right? And understanding that all the things that we are reading about are connected to the cuff, right? Which is a straight line that transcends the Simpson and goes all the way to the endless world. Oh, Tino, you got any points in this?
I was just saying that the example that you used was with the puppet,
Yeah.
like was good, solid. Like I like that because it's almost like programming in a way. Like the residue is like a program, and then now you have like a shim. It's like flowing through the energy is flowing through like a shim is embedded in the system, like he's running the system in a way. So it's like even when the wrong call brings out like the body, like the body is limited, but then you have the soul that governs the body. So you have the unlimited governing the limited, but it's following the rules and framework of that structure. You know what I mean? So the kaf now is that flow of energy in a world that's in a world that has structure and limitation, but Hashem, the Kaf, is flowing through that. And it's like, wow. So it's like the expansiveness within a restricted reality. You know what I mean? It's amazing actually how Ram Call like breaks this down so simply. When you think about it, it's like he breaks it down simply so you can actually like wrap your mind, like approach it. But then once you go into the particulars of it, it's like, whoa. It's like it gets amazing. So yeah.
And what you're saying is key because it's key because his whole point was saying that a lot of the teachings of the Ari, a lot of them were a lot of them were a lot of them were metaphorical and shouldn't be took literally. And so his goal in this sefer was to clarify the literal teachings of what the Ari was doing, and to exclude the metaphorical parts that were part of the literature of the time that people understood at that time. He said because a lot of people took a lot of this is his argument, right? Not mine. That a lot of people took the the metaphors, the Yehudim, as he refers of the Yehudim that the Arizal, that he said many of them were metaphorical, and start using them as practices and created problems for themselves. So he came to clarify that for people. So it's just interesting that both of us are picking up on that clarity that he's bringing to the table, in terms of this particular study. So, but again, putting us in a position for teaching, right? Because this is a normal conversation. We have to explain this. I know you're giving your wife, Shir, and your mom, all these people, right? I just want to encourage that because a lot of these ideas they have to learn about the universe too. They have to learn about how these things come together. They have to learn how these things function, right? And they're perfect people to start with just teaching, and not at their level. And that's the genius of being a teacher, is being able to communicate it in a way that that person is going to understand. You know what I mean? And at a time that they can understand, and these different things. So, the people around you are the best people to think about, and even concepts. You don't have to teach them a whole sugya, a whole shir, just maybe one small idea. You know what I mean? Like there's light inside and there's light outside. We can't see of it. And science says it. And there's scientific points that, yeah, and the scientists say like this. And then that could make someone feel comfortable, if they came from academia, they believe in academia like my family does. Rabbi Sachs, Chief Rabbi Sachs, he was genius at that. He had to deal with all the intellectuals of Europe, and so he taught a Torah that allowed them to connect. Right? He brought in common examples. He brought in historical points. This things that are outside of the realm of, like, say, Jewish history, but he could take lessons out of it and build lessons for people to understand Jewish history and understand Torah, right? So we have so many great Rabbanim that we've learned from in the yeshiva that has given us such a wide perspective on how to communicate with different audiences. I was at one meal over Shabbat, and it was a great meal. It was a yeshiva shamil, the whole type of thing. And I went to 3 meals that day, right? I told you what the one with the crazy lady at the end, but the point is just saying that the meal that I went at earlier, I said to him, I asked him if I could say something. And, at the end of the meal, just like, because everyone was sitting there, I wanted to get their attention. And I said, well, because of the home, I'm gonna stay in the yeshiva shita type of a thing, right? And then he's like, thank you, because you have to understand where people are at. You know what I'm saying? And you have to um, you have to understand where people are at, and you have to teach at that level. So that's what we learn from different types of rabbanim, not just because they're brilliant. I mean, that is a factor as well, but the bigger point is that we have different avenues of knowing how Torah has been communicated throughout the ages, how it's being communicated currently by, from rabbis, religious rabbis, Shomer Shabbos rabbis, but from Jonathan Sachs all the way to the Ramchal, all the way to other Sfarim, we're here. But the point is having a vast understanding that God is speaking to us through all of the sages. We're picking up different lights from all the sages. And then from there, we could have a broad perspective. Anyways, we'll continue on. I guess for me, for tonight, it's Simchat Torah. The best thing to do is, celebrate, celebrate. Have a little time with the wife. Just dude, I know it's like the work week for you guys, so I mean, I know you can't go too crazy, but just a little bit simcha, simcha. Whatever you guys do to get to simcha, it doesn't have to be anything religious, right? Per se, you know what I mean? But whatever it does that makes you guys happy together, that's what you should do, right? Because you're not necessarily around a lot of things that like other people you could chill with per se at this point, right? That are frum and religious, right? That's the people I want to, if you're going to have community outside of, what we're doing is it should be with religious frum people, because the technology that you're learning, you'll be able to apply to everything that they're doing. Other people, they're still in the frame of nationalism and culture and this, and it's like, and that's cool, but I don't know. I'm not in that. I'm not in that space. Anyways, we'll continue on. But yeah, tonight is that. It's all about surrounding light. And this is the it. And then now we go back into our new life, right, with a whole new set of powers and koach, and we'll have success. You know what I mean? Type of a thing. Blah blah blah. Anyways, whatever. I'll tell you some more other funny stuff later. But so tonight, oh yeah, so tonight and then tomorrow. Yeah, so tomorrow's holiday, so we won't be able to have a class. What's today? Tuesday?
Nah, that's Monday.
Today's Monday. Perfect. Okay. All right. So we'll be back. We'll be back on Wednesday. Any other thoughts on it? We're just flowing. I don't think it's such a big thing, huh?
Yeah, no. Um, yeah, it's really just kind of even, we were bringing over Rabbi Sachs, just using, scholarly or academia to connect, on different levels of Torah, depending where everyone is. Kind of goes back to what the Ron call saying with the residue, just because there there's nothing, and I think I kind of mentioned this in my voice message. There's no other space for anything else because Hashem filled it. So even pulling academia is Torah.
Exactly.
It's not in the framework as it should be. The alignment per se isn't exactly where it needs to be.
No,
But
but
there's
when you use it, it becomes
right,
Torah.
Baruch Hashem. So it's like there's nothing but Hashem. Like there's no way. Like Torah is the blueprint of all reality. So there's nothing outside of Hashem. So it's like if we look here and look there, is that it reminds me of something I read about the Rambam. And
Mm.
he was going into like why is there so many different messianic figures in history? Like Yeshua, you have I think Islam is Muhammad, and you have so many different things. And I think one of the commentators was bringing out is like Hashem has allowed a messianic consciousness to be embedded into all of humanity. So when Mashiach does come, it's an easier acceptance in a way for all of humanity. It's like we already have it in our minds. And it's amazing to think about. It's like, wow, like here are, what's akin to idolatry or a disconnection to Hashem. Hashem's like, you know what, it's okay. Let me embed this in their mind. It kind of reminds me of the apostle with the children of Ephraim, and Hashem's like, leave them be, they're at peace. Even though they're committing, idolatry and they're not in line with the Torah, they're at peace with each other, that's okay. And it's like, wow. So when you think about it, it shows like, even what the wrong call is saying, like Hashem he's allowing himself to be governed by his own rules in a way. You know what I mean? Like he's operating within the rules that he set. So for one, that shows the mastery of Hakadosh Baruch Hu, and also shows that everything is for the best. It's Gamzula Tova at the end of the day because Hashem is not trying. He's allowing us to grow and manifest the way we need to. And the end of it all, Hashem's king, regardless if you recognize it or not. We have the ability, we have the free will to recognize it. We should, but it doesn't take away from him being king, for being complete sovereign of all realities, all worlds. So it's just like going back to my original point, you know, regardless, like you should have the confidence, to be able to connect to anyone on any level and bring that Torah to them because it's all Torah. It's nothing but Torah. It's nothing but Torah. That's it. There's nothing but Hashem. That's kind of my last one on it.
Yeah, so you got the academia. The key thing is like I would say one way to do it, and the Rob Berg was really great at this too with academia. He talked a lot from the perspective of science. He used science to explain Kabbalah. That's why he wrote the book Nanotechnology, and spiritual technology was a big theme because he was really incorporating like the advancement of quantum physics, all these things, and he was using that to explain Kabbalistic ideas. And that's around that time is when he had his stroke. It's interesting, right? So, anyways, but yeah, I think that's something we have to do. And even on that point, when I was talking to Zakaria, I was like, no one has really written Torah from the North American perspective. There's a lot of Torah that's come to North America, and there's been a lot of Torah teachers in North America, but they've mostly been teaching from a yeshivish, more Lithuanian, your perspective, right? And it fits into America because it's still like academic, it's still a common language, and these types of things. But a Torah that's written from the soil of America. When I say from the soil, not like you're like sitting in like you know surrounded by dirt. I'm saying it from the standpoint of the American experience and implying the different things that have happened, the different experiences that happen, the different cultures, the different ideas, and explaining that through Torah, right? And because I don't believe the Torah has actually touched the America. I think that some of the principles and the values of the Torah and Judaism were, inside of films and television, good guy against bad guy, good guy prevails at the end. All these types of things were shaped by early Hollywood, right? Paramount Studios, these types of places, mostly Jewish writers from Europe, right? Because that was the only place they could get jobs because they would hire Jews other places, right? And so anyways, the point is just saying that, it's an important, it's just a very important frame of reference just to take our culture as a collective American society and even specific cultures and building out Torah from that perspective because we haven't had that. And I think America has so much power in the world that even a little bit of elevation will shift all of planet Earth. You know what I'm saying?
Hey Rob, it's interesting. The only group that could truly write the American perspective and give it the totality of what America really represents is the African American perspective.
It's true. It's true.
Like we are America. Like we are the core principles and values of what America truly is and what it represents. I wonder if that would be accepted that way though.
The thing about it, we're in an AI generation now. Everyone's out of business. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like there's a hierarchical thing, and these people have to approve it. And no, it's over. It's over. Right. So now it's like, no, the best ideas win. Right. The best concepts win. And what you're saying is true. Like if you want to talk about, humanity, love, patience, all the Torah values, the Black community, the community that was called Black, right, express that more than anyone in like I said, in the last 400 years. You know, who's done it on planet Earth, right? So that point is a very important point, right? Because it is those experiences of compassion, of being able to empathize with other people. But I mean, I'm saying people who are white sat and watched people who look different than them be abused, murdered, killed, raped, extorted, and they went to work every day. They see inequity now. Maybe you have some protest on college campuses, but after that protest, they go back to their neighborhood of privilege, right? So it's just saying that that's not a good position to be in spiritually, right? And I don't see the Shekhinah resting upon people like that. I see the Shekhinah resting amongst the vulnerable, the widows, the orphans, people who are stripped away from their family, their life, their culture. I see the Shekhinah rescue upon them. You know what I mean? That's what the sages teach, right? So I believe the sages. So anyway, so yeah, but these are things that are going to have to be addressed. But we got to do it. We have to write the story, right? So we have to continue to refine ourselves, purify ourselves, so we could be a channel. Hashem's even put the thought in our head to begin with, right? It's Hashem's thought. It's not my thought. It's Hashem's thought, right? So the key thing is now is to be a vessel for Hashem's thought, and that's what we're doing. We're purifying ourselves every day. We're doing avodas, right? The Temple Mount is central. That's our focus. Our focus is the Temple Mount. Nothing else. Nothing else. Not synagogues, not shuls, not yeshiva. The Temple Mount. That's it. That is our focus. That's where our tefillah is focused at. That's where our votive is focused at. That is the destination, right? That is the destination. That's our reality, is the Temple Mount. That is the foundational part of the yeshiva. Focused on the Temple Mount, davening for the building of the Beis Hamikdash, purifying ourselves to be a service to the Beis Hamikdash. That's what we're doing, bro. Yeshiva Sanhedrin, let's go.